Hey guys, welcome back. So last week we did our first property vlog, which was the vlog all about how you can start in property investment and how from £10,000 you can go all the way to building a £1 million portfolio in a period of just 7 years. Now, that was a very base level introduction to property. It didn't go into the nitty-gritty, it didn't go into the details, it just gave you a base case scenario that if everything went amazing and everything was perfect and you're buying the right properties at the right time, in the right place, how you could, in an ideal case scenario, build up that portfolio. It's been done before and it can be done today as well. However, life doesn't always go to plan. So let's also look at some of the pitfalls that can happen and how you should assess property investment opportunities. So what we're doing now is we're continuing on to that vlog, and I'm going to do a series of vlogs about property, and today I'm starting the second one, and the second vlog now is all about how you can assess a rental investment opportunity. Any property that you look at that you want to acquire for a renting, how you can use my simple 5-step process on how to assess it and assess any rental property in the world on what return it will give you on your money. So guys, before we start, I just want to say, click below, subscribe to my channel so that you get the first notification as soon as my next vlogs come out, especially the property ones that are coming. Comment, like, and share. Share it with your friends that are interested. Let's get this content out. You know, I'm giving this out for free. I'm not taking anything. My channel does not have any advertising on it. I'm not selling anything. This is just me spreading my knowledge, what has helped me in a young age to become successful, become a successful entrepreneur, and become financially independent. I'm sharing my experiences with you guys for free. So please, let's try and share it with as many people as you can, as many friends that you have who may benefit from them. Share it with them all. And comment below. Let me know what content you want. Let me know what you thought of this. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. Because as we're going through this series, we're going to get more and more complicated, more in depth into the nitty-gritty of the property market. And I want you guys to tell me what you want to hear. Anyways, now let's get to this. So last week we did a vlog about how you can create a £1 million portfolio in property starting with just £10,000, using some principles of investing in the right places, investing below market, or enjoying good capital growth by investing in the right locations, releasing capital, reinvesting that again, and building up your portfolio. How in 7 years you can go from £10,000 to a £1 million property portfolio. Now, that was the headlines. There's a lot more details within it. There's a lot more to how you'd actually build that portfolio. There's obviously, with any business that you do, there's pitfalls, there's setbacks, etc. Now, that was the first in the series, and it was really the base level. It was the base case, ideal world solution. And now what I'm going to do as we go on throughout the series, I'm going to do some more property vlogs now, and I'm going to start going into a little bit more detail. And today I'm going to take it a little step further, and today we're going to go into rental income and how to assess a property for its rental investment potential. Okay? So I've created a very simple 5-step process on assessing a rental property. Okay? So, which I'm going to talk you through today. So now the first step in that process is, number one is the property. So what is the property we've got? Now we're going to assume that we have 2-bedroom apartment, right, which is a conversion of a house. So it was a terraced house which has now been converted into a 1-bedroom flat on the ground floor and a 1-bedroom flat on the first floor. So it's a house that's already been converted, and you've acquired this property already converted. So you're not buying it and renovating it, you've acquired it already in that current shape and form. Now, a property like that, let's assume it's somewhere in the north. Let's say it's costing you £120,000. Okay, so we've got a 2-bedroom apartment, and the value of that is £120,000. Okay, now first of all, this type of property would likely get you a good yield. This is a property that it's not going to be in the city centre. It's probably going to be on the outskirts of the city or close to the city centre somewhere, but within the urban within the urban parameters of the city, but it's not going to be a city centre property. It's going to be an old property, likely from the 40s or 50s, which somebody's converted recently to make it into these 2 flats. But something like this will give you a good rental yield. So, you know, if you're looking for something turnkey, already done, this type of property would give you a good rental yield. What we're going to assess in stage 2 now is the cost of buying this property. Now, the property, although on paper is £120,000, that's not what it's going to cost you. And for us to accurately understand our rental yield and what return we're going to make on the investment, right, the ROI, if for us to understand that, we need to really understand how much money we're going to put into this deal. And if you're buying a property, and for example you're buying a property for £120,000 and you're getting a 75% loan on that property, it's not just a 25% you need to put in. You know, you need to be thinking about all these other costs as well and have that money prepared for when you're going into the property. So let's talk about those additional costs that are involved when you're acquiring a property. So first of all, we're going to have, and this is a buy-to-let property, so I'm assuming it's your second property, you're going to have stamp duty. So in the United Kingdom, stamp duty has become quite complicated now. It varies according to if it's your first property you're buying or the second property you're buying, and the value of the property, etc, etc. The higher the value of the property, the more and more the stamp duty increases. However, as we're assuming this is your second property as a buy-to-let property, the best thing to do is go online. There's lots of calculators that you can use to tell you how much the stamp duty would be on a property like this, and that's exactly what I'm going to go now. Just going to go online and check out what the stamp duty would be on our 120 grand rental property. £3,600. Okay, so guys, the flat rate on that property of 3%, so we are going to pay 3% of our purchase price, which would be £3,600. Okay, now let's, on top of that, we'll have to pay some legal fees, which is for the lawyer to check your contracts, draft your contracts, any searches you need to do. Let's estimate another £1,500 for that. So your purchase costs on top, including all your legals and your stamp duty, you're looking at around about £5,100. So the total cost of the property is £125,000 and 100. Now let's move on to stage 3. In stage 3, first of all, a typical property like this that I'm thinking of, £120,000, you're probably going to be making around about £500 per 1-bedroom apartment in rent, so about £1,000 a year in rent. So our rent, £1,000 a month in rent. Our rent, gross rent, is £1,000 per month. But that figure, don't be fooled by it just yet, right? £1,000 per month is just the initial rent coming in. We've got a lot of deductions we need to take from that. Okay, so straight away, the first deduction I'm going to take from that £1,000 is our management fee. So likely, if you're using a rental management company who are managing the property, or who are finding you the tenant and managing the property on your behalf, taking away all the headache from you and managing the day-to-day affairs, they would typically charge anywhere from up to 12%. Negotiate it well, I think you can easily get a deal at 8%. So you're going to pay around 8% in property management fees. So from that £1,000, straight away we can take away that 8%, which is £80 we take away. Now, in some properties, right, you also, depending, for example, if you're renting to a student or you're renting as part of a HMO, you could be having to pay utilities. So they're gas, electric, Wi-Fi, all those extras, water bills. Then you've got service charge. right? This is typically if you've got something within an apartment block with managed communal halls to manage those facilities, the lifts, etc. You have to pay a service charge. Again, this type of property, there is no service charge, so you're not paying a service charge. In addition, what I do is I would put aside an amount for, first of all, for vacant periods. Now, so when you're renting a flat out, what you rent that flat out is on an AST, a short hold tenancy, is a standard contract that's used, and we can go into that on some other time, but the standard contract you use when you're renting out your property. Your property manager will look after all of that as well, so you don't need to stress about that too much. Anyways, short hold tenancy is typically anywhere from 6 months, 12 months, to even 2 years or 3 years. But typically I'd say on average tenants probably stay about a year to 2 years, right? So what I like to do is every year take away 5% for the vacant period. So when a tenant moves out and you've got a new tenant moving in, let's take away 5% of our total. So of that £1,000 a month, let's put £50 aside for vacant periods. This is just in our reserve fund. We're putting this to the side. The £1,000 a month's coming in. £80 gone to the management agent, £50 I've put aside now, and that is my reserve fund for my vacant periods. Now another 5% I'm going to put aside, sorry, let's add that 5% there. Another 5% I'm going to, this is £50 a month again, I'm going to put aside for repairs. Okay, now the repairs that I'm putting 5% aside for, the boiler's broken down, the radiator's not working, there's a leak coming in, wall needs painting again, when the tenant moves out, need to replace the carpet, small things like that. So we're putting another 50 quid aside from there, because what can happen is, with both of these factors over there, and we've got one more to come as well, is if you've not put this money aside, all of a sudden you've got a £4,000 bill, right? Between your repair work that you need to do and, because all of a sudden you've got a £5,000 bill to pay in repair work that needs to be done when someone's moved out or something, the roof's fallen through, and you now need to pay for this all of a sudden, and that means you've got half a year of rental gone out of the window. So we budget from this from before, so we're not lining ourselves up for those surprises, right? So in that case, I'm also going to then put another 5%, right, for capital expenditures, CapEx. That's what you call it, capital expenditures, CapEx, 5%. The CapEx, big costs, right? There's some, as I said, the roof's gone through, you need to do a new roof, some major structural work to the property, the entire property needs renovating again, anything that may need to doing a big expenditure, we're putting 5% of that for that as well. So 5% we put for vacant, for times when the property may be vacant, 5% we've got for repair works, and 5% we've got for CapEx. Now the final expense which we have, and this is an assumption I'm making, but I know most people who invest in property, they don't just use their own money, they use the bank's money, they use lenders' monies to play the property game. Let's put our mortgage in here. So on this basis over here, we've got a mortgage at 75% loan to value. Our acquisition cost is £120,000, 75% of that is £90,000. That's our loan amount. On £90,000, what we have is an interest-only mortgage, right? In the UK, for buy-to-let, for rental properties, easily available are buy-to-let mortgages, whereas you'd never pay the capital back. That 90 grand, you're never paying it back. On the 90, you're just paying the interest every year, right? So typically, you can get rates of around about 3.5% to 4%. Let's assume we've got a rate of 3.75% on that. So on 90 grand, we're paying 3.75% a year. We're paying 3,375. Divide that by 12. Monthly payment is about £281.25. Okay? So to summarize all of the costs associated, that's our rental income over there. We've got 8% property management, which comes off the £1,000. We've got 5% which we're putting aside out of our £1,000, £50 for the vacant periods. We're putting another 5% aside for repair works. We're putting another 5% aside for capex, so big structural works that maybe don't need to be done in the property from time to time. And finally, we've got our mortgage repayments at 281.25. So now let's work out our net rental return. This is the most important part of it, because this is what's going to determine our return on investment overall. Okay, so in this scenario, currently the rent is £1,000, and what we do to find the net rental return is we minus all of these costs from our rental return, from our rent, to get the net rental return. All the amount we're getting for rent minus all of the associated costs, that's our net return. In a way, you could say profit before tax, or EBITDA, earnings before income tax deductible. Tax, a whole other subject, not my area of expertise. We'll leave that for another day. But point being, this is now going to be your return before you're paying any tax, right? So in essence, you could say your pre-tax profit. So all of our costs over here, let's put them all together. We've got £150, £150 over here in the vacant, possession and repairs and the capex. Another £80 in our property management. So £230, £230 plus 281 and 25 pence. Our monthly costs it's 511.25. We minus those monthly costs from the total rent to get our net rental return, and our net rental return is £488.75 net rent return. Very straightforward, very simple, nothing complicated. That's where we are right now. Okay? Now I want to go into the return on investment, ROI calculator. Okay? Step number 5. And this is really the end goal of where you need to reach when you're assessing a rental property investment opportunity, because this is what tells you this investment versus another investment, whether it be in stocks and shares, whether it be in a different property, whether it be your money sitting in the bank. How is this investment performing for me? This is the key. Number 5, this is the most important part. Okay? Return on investment. First and foremost, for return on investment, I need to understand exactly how much cash I've invested. Because when you're looking at return on investment, you see how much cash has gone out of my pocket and what return am I making on that cash. Okay? So cash out of my pocket, I had 30 grand was my deposit for the property. Yeah? I had another 5,100 in acquisition fees. Legal fees, acquisition costs, which were my legal fees, my stamp duty, searches, etc. Right? So all in, I'm into this property, my total cash exposure on entering this deal was £35,100. Now, to work my net return on investment, what I need to do is I need to look at, on an annualized basis, on a yearly basis, what is my net income from this property. Okay? Then I need to subtract that. I need to look at the net rental income as a percentage of that 35,100. So to work this out, the first thing I do is my net rental return, I multiply that by 12. Okay? For 12 months in the year. So that gives me 488.75 times by 12. Net yearly income is £5,865. Now this 5865 is the net amount I am making on my investment of 35,100. I invested 35,100 pounds to make 5,865 pounds this year. What percentage is 5865 of 35,100? So what I'm going to do to get that answer is I'm going to divide 5865 by 35,100 and then times that by 100, and that gives me 16.7. That means I am making a cash on cash return on investment, ROI, of 16.70% on my capital. So that money over there, every year, it is earning me 16.7%. If I want to compare that to the bank, I might be getting 1.5% in my bank, if that, if I'm in the ISA, etc. I want to assess against any other rental investment. I want to assess that against any other stock market investment. That's my key number. That is the number you need to work out. When you're working out a rental investment, when you're looking at a new deal of any sort, what is your cash on cash return on investment? In this case, for a typical property like this, we're looking at 16.7%. I'm sure all of you are looking at this thinking 16.7% is a very healthy return on investment in a secure investment, a bricks and mortar, where you're buying an asset. It's not a stock or a share where, you know, today it's worth 30 grand, tomorrow all of a sudden why it's worth, next day it's worth 10. You know, it's a solid investment you're making, but this is just your dividend, you can say. This is your dividend income, your residual income. What makes property very interesting, right? And this is aside from all this. So this was your 5-step process to assessing a property investment opportunity, right? A buy-to-let property investment opportunity. What type of property is it? How much is it for? Your acquisition costs. So what is the total cost of the property? What is your rental? What is all the costs of the rental? Net rental return, which is your rent minus all of your costs. Then what is your return on investment? The total cash you invested, your deposit of the property, plus your closing costs. Your net yearly income, which is the net rental return times by 12. That as a percentage of 35,100 give you 16.7%. So that is those 5 steps is you assessing any rental property investment opportunity, and nobody can tell you that this is not the right way. This is comprehensive. It is everything in there, right? There's one more part to this which is nothing to do with this, but what makes property very interesting is capital growth. Now, being very conservative, right? Let's assume this property grows by a rate of 4% a year over the next 5 years, okay? So this property, there's £120,000 today. We add on to that 5 years of growth at 20%. This property is now worth £144,000, okay? We have another £24,000 worth of profit, which is the difference between what we bought it for and what it's worth today. Okay? So over 5 years now, when you only invested 35,100, every year you're making 16.7%. Okay? So every year you've made 16.7%. Over 5 years, you made 83% of that money back. So over 5 years, you made back, just in rental, 29,133. So my investment over here of 35,100, in 5 years, rental, I made back £29,133. Okay? Which represents 83% of my investment, initial investment. Now all of a sudden, I've also got 24k profit. Okay? Now let's bring our 24k into this scenario. Capital growth, 24k that 24k means my total profit now after 5 years in this deal is 29,133 plus 24,000 pounds is 53,000 pounds 133. Okay, so that means on my investment of 35,100, I've done 151% plus return. Very simple. We're looking at a capital growth rate of just, let's just put that in there, 4% per annum. So 20% over 5 years, 4% growth per annum, which means 120 grand property in 5 years worth 144. Very realistic. Gives us 151% over 5 years, or 30% per year. When you start looking at figures like that and you're not thinking this is some really complicated investment, you're not buying and renovating or going into auction and finding some really discounted property that's in a mess and you're taking risks of the structure of the property and you're then renovating it and then trying to rent it out, etc. You're just buying a property at a good price with a good rental yield, right? And managing that correctly and buying in a location where you're getting just very decent growth of 4% a year. 30% a year is the kind of money you can make. 151% on your capital you can make. Property for you. That's property, guys. That's property for you. This is not even expensive property. This is property that's accessible for everyone. So guys, if you like this video, like, share it with your friends if you think it would be useful for them. Comment below, tell me what you think. Click the subscribe button. So the next video that comes out, we're doing a whole property series, going to be more property videos coming up. Click the subscribe button below you now so you get a notification immediately when the next video comes out. And let me know what other content you're looking for. What more do you want to know about property? Because as I'm going on, I'm going to getting more and more advanced, going into more details. So let me know what kind of things you want to know so I can give you those exact information that you guys are looking for.